I love to promote sticking to clean foods, right? And not fad dieting, staying away from pills and powders and shakes and everything that you see on social media, the supplement industry and fat loss pills and this newest fad diet that's horribly restrictive. It's just everywhere. Anything is going to promote instant gratification is something that we want to avoid.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wrestle podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Brenton, and on this podcast, we are talking about everything wrestling related from a girl's perspective. Today, we have a great guest on. Her name is Brittany Schrempp. She is a former collegiate 3-time All-American 800-meter runner. She is a certified exercise physiologist and nutrition specialist. She has a bachelor's degree in exercise science, and she's a co-owner of Tough, which is Total Unique Fitness, with her husband, Cameron, who is a 3-time collegiate All-American wrestler. She is now turned a national level bikini competitor and is passionate wrestling mom. So welcome, Brittany. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's so good to see your face again.
Yes, so good to see you. So Brittany and I kind of grew up together. We were on some of the same sports teams, and she dated my brother actually. So I've known her for a long time. It's great to see what you're doing with your life and how you're impacting people and keeping, yourself super healthy and fit. And we're excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, same to you. I was just telling my husband, because he was like, who is this that you're doing the podcast with? So I was telling him a little bit about you, and also was telling him, like, people used to think they used to think that we were twins, and we're close twins. They kind of look alike.
Yes,
so
always.
We used to get called twins all the time. But yeah, I was telling my husband a little bit about you, and I just want to tell you that I'm so proud of everything that you are accomplishing and promoting the sport of wrestling. You've always been so big in the sport of wrestling and have always made an impact, even just on my life, seeing that you were wrestling, boys at that level. Like, I have told so many girls about you and your story and how you wrestled in college, like well before you have, started the podcast and were coaching and things like that. I have been sharing your name for so long. So, congratulations on the new podcast too. This is awesome. And I'm just happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you. So tell me, what have you been up to lately? What are you doing with your life? Tell me about yourself.
Gosh, we're so busy.
Yes.
Let's see. So, like, kind of starting at the top, I have 3 kids. One of them is my stepson. He is 14 now, and we are a full-blown wrestling family. So both my boys wrestle. So Aiden is 14. Cashton is almost 10. He'll be 10 this coming fall. And then our little daughter, Braylon, just turned 5. Like I said, we're one of those families that wrestles year round. It kind of never stops around here. It's, from like, it's not even a winter sport. Like, we're in camps. My husband's coaching a camp this coming week. They go to wrestling practices out of town. We travel and go to like a bigger facility, Legends of Gold in Beersford, 3 times a week with them. So it's like we eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. And, when football rolls around, it's that too. So, we're full blown wrestling. Cameron and I are both coaching online. We have well over 300 clients online that we train all over the country, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I also run the girls strength and conditioning program for the high school girls in town here. So I have about 40 athletes that I'm working with right now in the summertime. I've been doing that for a few years. So I just have them from beginning of June all the way through August when they start volleyball. So I love doing that too. We're so in go mode all of the time. I'm also, as you know, bikini competitor, which I'm in season right now. We're actually flying to Chattanooga tomorrow.
Okay.
We have to leave here at 2:00 tomorrow morning to fly there, and I'll be competing at a national show on Saturday. So, like, it's either sports or bodybuilding or like constant around here. But I'm very thankful for everything that we do have going on. And like I said, we're full blown in the sport of wrestling. So it's not, when my husband was like, it's weird you're on a wrestling podcast. I'm like, well, kind of not, because, I'm just as much into it as you guys are. I'm just kind of on the back end of things. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not actively doing the sport and have never wrestled myself, but gosh, I've been surrounded by the entire sport for, really probably since I dated your brother.
Yeah.
Like, long ago. Like, it was kind of like when I was probably 15, was kind of when I really started to get into it. And now it's been something that I've always admired. And especially when it comes to, I was able to relate to it just being in an individual sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always admired the sport of wrestling because it was so similar to running in that way of like all eyes on you, one-on-one, individualized, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a crazy busy life. I definitely understand how the wrestling schedule never ends. It's constant year round, no matter what season you're in. You're always got to do something wrestling. But then, yeah, you got all of your crazy life stuff going on too. How long of a season is your bikini season?
Yeah, so I started prep this year in January.
And what does that entail?
Yeah, so basically just dieting down for a show.
Okay.
So it usually takes me about 16 to 20 weeks to get down to my stage weight. I usually start off in my off season like around 130 pounds, maybe a little bit under. And right now I'm like around 115. So I give myself, allow myself about a pound to lose per week to get down to stage weight. I competed in April and May, and then this will be my last show. As you probably know, it's hard to diet for that long,
Yes.
right? Like at a certain point, it's like your body's just kind of like, nope. And so I'm definitely at that point where, I'm ready to be done dieting. I still, in my off seasons, like eat really healthy, and I still train every single day. So it never really stops, but I'm definitely allowed more food and flexibility than I am when I'm dieting down and trying to maintain my leanness, no different than a wrestler. So yeah, this will be my last show. So, but I have been, dieting and cutting weight since January. So it's definitely after 6 months, it's like, I'm done.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. So what does that diet look like when you're trying to get down to your weight, and then how do you maintain it?
I love that question. So I track everything that goes in my mouth. Like every little bit gets tracked. We have in our app that we use, we can track in there, or, if someone wanted to track their food intake, they could use something like MyFitnessPal. Everything gets tracked, weighed, measured, like down to the gram. I'm really diligent with it too. Like I am hitting my numbers to a T. I am down to the gram. My kids laugh at me because I'll be measuring out like peanut butter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not 16 grams on the dot on my food scale, like I'll take it out and put it back in. Like I'm trying to like make it as exact as possible down to the gram. Granted, it doesn't matter as much, if I'm going to be off a gram here or there, it doesn't make that big of a difference as far as weight loss goes. But I personally feel like mentally it does. Right. Okay. Like knowing that I hit, coming into a national show, especially knowing that I hit those numbers and I was diligent and I was precise, I feel like almost gives me an extra edge knowing that I put in that level of work. Yeah. It's also maybe a little bit controlling on my end, but still like I take a lot of pride in, hitting those numbers.
Yeah.
So, in the sense of dieting for a show too, a lot of it is, making sure I'm eating clean. I eat virtually no processed food, very minimal processed foods, a lot of vegetables. I fill my plate with vegetables. I do not skip meals, right? When we look at weight loss and losing fat, losing body fat, skipping meals is not the way to go. That's one of the things we teach our wrestlers too. I'm eating 5 to 6 meals per day. I'm packing my food with me. I'm planning ahead, eating a diet high in protein, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, complex carbohydrates. So like rice, potatoes, whole grains. Granted, I am gluten-free because I have a gluten allergy, but those are things that even the competitors I coach and even the wrestlers that we do dieting plans for, we still include those things in there. I also structure my workout I also structure my meals around my workout. So I make sure I get the right nutrients pre-workout, the right nutrients post-workout. So my nutrition plan is focused on my performance in the gym too, which is something that we also, it's very similar. How I'm dieting now is very, very similar how we would diet a wrestler. Outside of the length, like as a wrestler, you have to be, you don't have 16 weeks to get down 16 pounds. A lot of the time it has to happen a lot quicker, but virtually the style of eating is pretty much the same. 5 to 6 meals per day, pre-workout meal, post-workout meal, 3 other meals, healthy fats, healthy carbohydrates, high in protein.
Does your meals differ on different workouts that you have planned throughout your training process?
Sometimes in the off season, when I'm in season, not necessarily. Off season, when I am really focused on building up a certain muscle group, like specifically, it's usually my glutes. Just being a competitor, that's kind of the area that needs to be built the most. And so sometimes I will do a higher carbohydrate meal before I have like a really hard, intense lift on a bigger muscle group. But in general, my pre-workout meal, it looks pretty much the same day to day. It is going to be higher in carbohydrates, a little bit higher in, not higher, about moderate fat and moderate protein, but higher on the carbohydrate range. So typically for me, it's oats with some coconut yogurt, which is also going to be in the carbohydrate range, and then a natural peanut butter. So natural peanut butter being the only ingredients are peanuts and salt, no sugar, no palm oil and things added into it, because that's just unnecessary. And then usually I put like frozen blueberries, and then I usually have a scoop of collagen in there too. Okay. So but it's going to be higher on the carbohydrate range because you're going to utilize those carbohydrates while you're exercising. So that's kind of where my energy sources is going to come from. If I am going to go into a workout and only drinking a protein shake, I don't have any carbohydrate storages to produce ATP energy that's going to give me a good workout. So one of the things too that I want to touch on is that a lot of things that we see with athletes is that they don't eat a pre-workout meal, or they are going and they're maybe just having like, some almonds and a protein shake. And then they go into the practice room and they don't have enough energy to get through their skills training. So they're not really getting anything out of that training session at all, or the conditioning part of it. So they're just kind of going through the motions in the practice room. Right. Versus if you really prioritize that pre-workout meal, you're able to go in, burn more calories because you are going to be working at a higher pace. You're going to be able to focus a little bit more on your skills training, getting more out of it. And then the conditioning part of it, again, you're going to have a little bit more energy that you're going to utilize anyway. You're going to have that energy source and energy available so you can burn more calories and ultimately just have a better workout.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, you see all these wrestlers, not eating 3 days of the week trying to make weight, and they're just dead in the wrestling room. And it's like, this isn't benefiting you. Your stomach's now smaller. It's harder actually to lose weight because your body's just trying to burn off whatever it can. And then you're barely drinking any water at the same time on top of that. So I like to get your perspective on it, because a lot of people have that misconception of, I just shouldn't eat and I'll make weight. No, you have to eat consistently to be able to get your body healthy and metabolize what you need it to as you're going through these workouts. And obviously that girls and boys are different, very much so, in how they can handle different foods and how much weight they can lose. So thinking, from a girl's perspective compared to a boy's perspective, what would be the main difference to you for nutrition wise on trying to get down to weight or trying to maintain a healthy weight for boys and girls? How is that different?
With the female athlete, it is different because in order to regulate our hormones and to have our hormones in a good spot, we have to have a certain level of body fat. And so I'm so thankful that there are regulations on how much a wrestler in general can lose per week. I'm so glad that they have those regulations, because especially for a female, if we are dieting too hard and we're trying to get down to a certain weight and we're so fixated on the scale, but taking our body fat percentages to a really low level, that is when we're going to find that girls are starting to lose their menstrual cycle, which is not great, especially at that age. Right. That's when we're going to see like a really dip in energy, our mood, things like that, like performance is going to decline. So that is, for me, the number one thing when it comes to a female athlete is making sure that they're not cutting so much weight to where they are taking their body fat percentage really low. And that's something that a male wrestler doesn't have to worry about. They can
Right.
have body fat percentages. I don't know, like, what are the regulations, do you know, for boys? I want to say it's 7 in the state of South Dakota. I think it's 7% for boys. And I don't know what it is in Wyoming, but do you know what it is for girls when
Yeah,
they,
so it's 7% for boys and then it's 12 to 15% for girls.
right? And it depends on the girl too, because some girls might lose their cycle when they're 16% body fat.
Yeah.
Some girls might lose it when they're 12. And so I really think it's important for a female athlete to feel comfortable communicating with their coach on that too. Like, hey, coach, I haven't had my cycle this month. Like, I hope that that's something that is being talked about in the wrestling room with those female athletes, because it's not something that we want either. And it is a sign that their body fat percentage is getting a little bit low, but I'm glad that they have those regulations. So yeah, that's definitely, I would say the biggest difference there is making sure that the female wrestler isn't taking their body fat percentages too low. Another big difference to, kind of talking about the cycle too, is that the female wrestler has to worry about water retention around their cycle, which is not only going to happen when you're cycling, but when you're ovulating too. Both.
Yeah.
Like, so you're kind of getting like 2 weeks in there where it's like your weight's kind of up and down, and just hormone fluctuations in general are going to impact the scale so much. So, certainly the differences are with those two things. There are some things that we can recommend as far as like, when a female wrestler is cycling and they're trying to get down in weight, and like cutting the water weight, where immediate thoughts go to cut water, cut water, cut water.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times it's like, don't cut your water, keep your water steady, but let's try to do something natural, like have dandelion tea, which is a natural diuretic, which is going to help kind of rid your body of that inflammation. Dandelion tea or ginger or turmeric. So like those are all natural supplements that can be taken for a female wrestler. And I will have like my competitors take those too. And it's just like a natural herbal tea that you can get. But as far as the types of foods that work better, I know you'd asked about that too. In comparison, I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of differences as far as the types of foods that a female should be eating versus a male. It's mainly just calories, right? Because the bodies are going to be bigger and they have bigger muscles. And they're just going to require a higher calorie when they're dieting, versus a female is going to require less calories typically, is going to require less calories when they're dieting. So I would say more of food volume amount versus, there's not a lot of differences as far as what types of foods are going to benefit each.
Right. And then everybody's got a different body type too. So do you just go off of like your body fat percentage and like your weight and your height? Is that kind of like what calories you're trying to look for?
Yeah. Yep. And that's just going to give you kind of a baseline. A lot of the times to figure out what the amount of calories someone should be on. Yeah. We definitely take into consideration like height, weight, age, right? That's kind of where you figure out what's called their BMR, your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount your body burns at complete rest. That's like if we were just complete couch potatoes and we're just sitting here, not doing anything all day long, that's what we are burning on a daily basis to just maintain, to just sit here. So then you have to take into consideration how much they're burning during practice, what they're doing during the day. So a lot of the times it's more of like, okay, are you going for runs in the morning too? What do your practices look like? What does your intensity look like? We have a lot of like farm kids too, who are getting up in the morning, doing chores, going for a run, and then they're going to school, and then they have practice and their skills practice later. They might be doing conditioning again later. So we take all that into consideration too, of like, okay, that person can eat a little bit more than someone who is, just kind of in the city, goes for a morning light run, goes to school, comes home, so we take all that into consideration too. So yeah, body type and just their daily activity level on top of their height, weight, and age.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's definitely all something that all these girls need to consider is, they're not all going to have the same diet because they're not the same body type. Especially, those bigger girls compared to, our 103 pounders, they definitely need different exercise plans and meal plans for what they're going to do and how they're going to burn that fat throughout the week or throughout the month or however long they have to make weight. So growing up, you kind of witnessed the cutting weight style of wrestlers and how, not necessarily healthy it was. So tell me about your journey and why you started to get so into fitness and become a competitor yourself.
I'm happy and glad that there's been a lot more education on wrestling and proper weight cutting. I feel like that's fairly new within the last few years because the standard wrestling diet is yo-yo dieting, right?
Yes.
Like I saw it in every wrestler. I saw it with even your brother. I saw it with like everyone, even my husband watching him, and he'll openly tell you like, I was a yo-yo dieter. And so that's one of the reasons that we are so adamant with pushing healthy weight cutting and doing things properly and doing it the right way, because he did it the wrong way.
Right.
And the unfortunate thing now is it affects your relationship with food for a long time.
Yes.
And it's really hard to get out of those habits. You might be even finding that now if you were a yo-yo dieter, like it's hard to fight cravings now. And a lot of that is because of those habits that you built when you were wrestling. So that's definitely one of the reasons that we started, promoting healthy weight loss for wrestlers, and him as now he's a coach, we'll go in and do nutrition talks. A lot of the times when he's coaching like a camp and stuff, we always include nutrition in that to try to just promote these healthier habits for wrestlers. And we make sure that we practice and preach practice what we preach with our own kids too. Like they cut a certain way. We try to eat a certain way year round. So it's not like they're all of a sudden, my stepson now, he wrestled at like so he was 113 this last year. He wrestled as an 8th grader up at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So we make sure that in his, what would be, quote, off season, that he's still active, he's still eating right. So it's not like he's gorging himself and packing on so much body fat where he's going to have a really hard time getting down to a healthy weight for wrestling.
Right.
So a lot of it is kind of management, I don't want to say even cutting weight, but just kind of weight management and just making sure you're still practicing those healthy habits that are making you a better athlete.
Yeah.
But, kind of answering your question as far as how I got to competing myself, it was kind of by chance, I guess. So after competing in college, so I was, I ran both track and cross country for Dickinson State University. And after graduating, my husband and I, shortly after started Tough. And then let's see, a couple years, well, in 2018, which had been 4 years after I graduated, I had my daughter, and I went through a weird bout of postpartum depression and anxiety. And I felt like a part of me was missing. I don't know if I had ever really found myself after running.
Right.
And it was almost like I had lost something. I had lost my competitive drive. Like, I didn't really feel like I had much to train for. And so it was during COVID, and COVID made all of that significantly worse. It was in 2020, June of 2020. I sent my husband a screenshot of a bikini show, a bodybuilding show that was going to be in Omaha like that coming fall. And he had been pushing me to compete for a really long time, just knowing it was going to be good for our business.
Right.
And I think knowing that it would probably bring out my competitive side that I felt like I had lost. And his reply was, do it. 2 words, that's it. Just do it. And I think I signed up like the next day, and the rest is kind of history. I fell in love with the process. I loved what it gave me education wise, like learning.
Yeah.
I feel I had never had to lose weight as a runner. It was more of like I would try to, I didn't have the healthiest eating habits, didn't have the best relationship with food. But I was more like restrictive with my food intake to try to, we're smaller, we're going to be faster, that kind of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had to lose body fat because I had always been little, and it was just not something that I ever struggled with or had to do structurally. Like, I have a small frame. I've always had a pretty fast metabolism, but the fact that when I started competing, I had to learn to lose body fat helped me become a heck of a lot better coach. So now I really feel like I am able to relate to athletes who are cutting weight a little bit better. Back then, before I did it myself, I don't even know if I mean, I was not really practicing what I preached, whereas now
Right.
I practice what I preach, and like I said, down to the exact gram.
Yeah.
So, how I got into bodybuilding was kind of by chance, but I'm so thankful that it was placed in front of me, that I took that plunge, because now we are able to, coach wrestlers the right way. And now we are able to coach bodybuilders, and I'm able to even coach, just general population women and relate to them a little bit more and practice what I preach. And now I understand the fat loss process a lot more because I've done it myself. And I think over the last, so I've been competing for now 4 seasons. Each season I've lost about 15 to 20 pounds. So like, I think I've gotten so familiar with the process.
Yeah.
So I'm just able to coach it a lot better now that I can, now that I've done it.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps, is being an athlete myself. I thought I knew everything about wrestling, but then going coaching, I know so much more. And then I tried reffing and I know so much more from that. And like, it just makes you see it through a whole new perspective, I think, and helps you stay a student of the sport or whatever you're doing. And you can give way more information if you keep learning about it and don't stop learning about it. So I love that you said that. You definitely look great. You can definitely tell that you are healthy, and you count your stuff and it shows, and you look great. So I think that that's great. Does South Dakota have girls wrestling in high school?
They do, yes. And so we are in Nebraska. My stepson goes to school in South Dakota. We actually sent him up there to wrestle for Canton. They are a big wrestling school. My husband actually graduated from Canton. So we sent him there to wrestle. That's that's how crazy we are. So
I love it.
Yeah, he's about an hour away from us. He lives with us all the time in the winter time, and then spends the school year with his mom up there. This was his first year in Canton, and they have an exceptional women's team. So awesome. My stepson I know he's probably going to be sending all this out to all their wrestlers, but they have quite a few girls who are planning on wrestling in college. So
awesome.
I love it. And I love watching them. They have a really big women's team, girls team, I guess, not women's, but girls team. In Nebraska, it is just now getting sanctioned. Like this would have been last year would have been the first year that it was sanctioned.
Yeah.
And we have, let's see. So my husband coaches the little league in town. So the League of Heroes, and they have so many girls. I love it. They have so many. And now I love that when we first moved here, there was no girls divisions there, even at the youth age. So I think that just kind of started happening within the last year or so. Whereas now there's all girls tournaments, there's all girls brackets, and some of those girls brackets are full with like 8 to 10 girls. I love it. So it's definitely becoming a lot more popular in Nebraska and in South Dakota, both.
Well, that's great to hear. I love to hear that. We just got sanctioned last year, so we are growing as well with you guys. So I love to see all the bordering states doing the same thing. So how old is your daughter?
5.
5. Do you want to let her try to wrestle, or has she had any interest in it at all?
Girl, she's already been to practices.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, so they do a TOTS practice. Okay. And so she goes to the TOTS practice. So that she just goes to the TOTS practice twice a week. It's for just the little kids, and it's more fun. They work on their stance and they do fun agilities and stuff. And then for as long as she can, she will stay for the older kids practice, because she has some friends that are in it. So of like that kindergarten age, she's still in preschool yet. So, she usually can stay for those older kids practice for like 45 minutes. And then after that she's done. So we just kind of let it be up to her. We've never struggled getting her to the TOTS practice. She loves going, especially because she's working with her dad, so it's like fun, and dad's there. She's a total daddy's girl. And then she'll stay for the older kids practice while they're doing drills. And then usually she comes up to me and she's like, I'm ready to go. But she can usually last about an hour and 45 minutes total, which I think is pretty good. My husband, he's a former boxer too. And so he has her boxing. She'll put boxing gloves on and she knows certain combinations. Like she's going to be way more coordinated than me. That is for sure. I can run and turn left and stand on stage and pose, but you put me in like a wrestling move or like anything like that, it's like game over. So she has it down, but yeah, I imagine she will be wrestling and she's pretty tough. So we think she'll end up being pretty good.
That's great. I love to hear that. Well, do you have anything else that you would like to add on your workout journey, on your nutrition journey, on anything you would just like to say to anybody about nutrition and bodybuilding or how they should maintain their weight moving forward?
I love to promote sticking to clean foods, right? And not fad dieting, staying away from pills and powders and shakes and everything that you see on social media. It is so the supplement industry and fat loss pills and this newest fad diet that's horribly restrictive it's just everywhere. Anything is going to promote instant gratification is something that we want to avoid. Right. My number one rule with food intake is if you can name the mother it came from and the plant it grows on, it is a whole food and it should be consumed in large amounts. So like no one really knows where a McDonald's cheeseburger comes from, right? Like truly, like you can name the ingredients in there maybe, but we don't really know exactly where it's coming from. And it's certainly not coming from nature. Yeah. So again, kind of repeat that in your head when you're wondering, should I have this? Could I have this? If you can name the mother it came from or the plant it grows on, it's a full food and you should be eating it in large amounts, like 80%. Allow yourself to be at that 80%. Leave the 20% for maybe like a cookie here and there, ice cream with your family. And that's really how we should be eating for the rest of our life. So you have to ask yourself too, if you're following a nutrition plan and you're following a diet plan, if it's not realistic and sustainable long-term, it's not great for your body either. So obviously when you're cutting in season, when you're weight cutting, the types of foods that you're eating really should be the types of the foods that you're eating in larger amounts in the off season too, when you're, maybe trying to put on some body fat after wrestling. Right. You are trying to build certain muscle or build some strength in your off season for wrestling. So we're just eating them in larger quantities, but we're still trying to prioritize as much as possible those complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, oats, lots of lean meats and proteins, and then also healthy fats. My fat rule is nature doesn't make bad fats, but factories do. So keep that in mind too, that fats that come from nature are something that we want to continue to eat. Things like canola oil and vegetable oil, any of those fats that we know are being made in a factory are not great, even like butter and things like that. So I hope that that's helpful, just some quick tips that is going to give someone like what is a whole food, just consume them in large amounts and eat as clean as possible. And if anyone was going to ever have any questions, feel free to seek me out on Instagram. I'm always answering questions just in my DMs and stuff and just helping as much as I can. Awesome. Well, I love to hear it. Well, where can people find you? So my Instagram is @theschrempp_fit. Our email is toughtrainingstudio@gmail.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you. Great to learn about some nutrition stuff from you. A lot of stuff I didn't know myself. So I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for a lot of girls that are trying to, cut for wrestling season or trying to maintain weight. Got a little bit of those misconceptions out of the way that people think that they might know that are true, which aren't definitely true. So I appreciate you coming and being on our podcast today. And thank you guys all for joining us today. Please join us next week for our Wrestler podcast. See you guys next time. I can't accept the loss. I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history.